and I'm just going to have you clap your hands.
Could you introduce yourself, including your full name, as well as how long you've lived here in Townsend?
My name is Victoria Brunelle, and so I lived in Townsend from birth until through school, probably about halfway through college, and then I moved to Fitchburg. I was going to Fitchburg State at the time. And I moved around a few times to Leominster, to Nashua, New Hampshire, to Merrimack, and then I moved back to Townsend. And that was probably, I'm guessing around 1992 or 93, and I have been back to Townsend ever since.
So what does Townsend mean to you?
Well, because I grew up here, certainly I have all my childhood memories, and I like it as a small town. I don't feel as though you have to be like in some other place to do what you want to do. Hopefully you can do it wherever you are. And it has a nice small town feel that I feel is that I like. Mm-hmm.
How has the town changed from when you were young to now?
Okay, well, the town probably had about 2,500 people when I lived here, when I was born here, and now I think it's probably 9,000 or 10,000. I think what's changed, maybe not so much about the town, but the people. Back years ago, we, as kids, we got to be able to just go out and play a lot. You know, we played like, I don't know, kick the can or 1, 2, 3 red light or whatever else. And we didn't really have to have our parents around. We were always right there in the neighborhood. But I feel like as time has gone on, that has changed, probably because of safety reasons, and there is much more organized sports. Like when I was younger, there really wasn't much in that way, and now it's quite prevalent, I think. What else was on there? What else did you say about that?
I just asked how it's changed from when you were young to now.
Okay, so that part's changed, has changed. We probably have, we have a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, I think the other things, though, haven't really changed too much. There's more people, but I still feel like it's a small, friendly town.
So what's your fondest memory in Townsend, going off of everything that's changed?
My fondest memory, well, let's see, we still have the band concerts. That was a big deal when I was growing up. But I also like going to the VFW and going ice skating, which now that doesn't seem like happens, but there's things like that that have just changed over time. And going out biking, you don't see too much of that too much anymore, but that's what we like to do. We were outside people. Yeah, I like that. Or outside kids, I should say. Yeah.
What was your schooling experience like when you were growing up, and did you pursue higher education?
So I did go to Spalding Memorial, and then of course I was here at North Middlesex, but of course we didn't have this school, so I graduated in '69. To me, I thought it was pretty typical, but I'm not sure. But you know, we had all our classes. We went out for recess. We got to play. We did whatever. And at school, we had the junior high, which is kind of segregated from the senior high at that way back when. And I was not an A student, like some of you I think might be, but I felt as though I got a decent education. You know, it wasn't like though I went to any private school or anything like that, which I think could be a little bit different than what a high school is. But for me, that's what I knew, and I was fine with it. I didn't have any problems. I did go to college, Fitchburg State. I didn't go too far, and got my degree as a teacher, an elementary school teacher. And other friends that I knew, some of them were going away to college because that was becoming a little bit more frequent. And others of us were still at home, commuting, driving to college, which I feel like I missed out a little bit there because I think going away to college it's kind of a nice transition of you learning about yourself and being a little bit more on your own instead of going from home to marriage, which is what I did. But at the time, that's what a lot of people did. So I'm fortunate. I feel like that I did get to go to college. Yeah, because my parents did not go to college, neither one of them. Yeah.
Did you end up teaching at Spalding?
No, I did not. As a matter of fact, I ended up working at Elsa Williams, which some of you, probably not too many of you know, but it was a fair-sized business in West Townsend. And I started out, I was working part-time because I was going to college, and so I worked in an office typing up, we were typewriters, yep, typing up invoices, and then I also worked there in the shipping department. That was my first, that was a job. I did that. And then I moved up and I worked in, I guess it would call sales. I did a little traveling too. That was my first experience flying. I went to Dallas and Chicago and New York. And, but I worked there for several years until my son was born, which was in '78. So I stayed home for a little bit, and I never really did any what I would consider teaching until, but it wasn't teaching kids. I decided to teach yoga. I didn't plan on it, but I started practicing yoga, and after about 10 years, I still had a full-time job. I decided to become a teacher. So that's what I do now. I'm a yoga teacher right here in Townsend. Yeah.
Do you have any activities that were in Townsend back then that aren't happening now, or activities you hope that will continue into the future in Townsend?
I think from activities, I didn't really participate in very many school activities. I seemed to be one that liked to be more out just doing my own thing than doing team sports. And but that's not true. My sister was very team oriented and liked everything that she did in high school. She did a lot of things. Activities. From back then, I was a Girl Scout. I did do that. That was okay. But I don't think there were too many other activities that I participated in or even really knew of back then. As I was, I grew up in the 50s, so it's kind of a different time. And now, I use the library. We have a nice library. And I also, I'm on the Townsend Historical Society. That's only been just about a year or so. And sometimes I take some of the programs that are offered at the library also. I think those would be my main things. I can't think of anything else.
So going back to what you said about the band concerts and how much they
Yeah.
mean to you, how has this left an impact on you and the community?
Well, I think it's interesting that they're still here after all these years. I really can't even believe that, because that's been around like for so long. And I mean, it's not like I was big into that type of music by any means, but it was a good time to just be outside. Our friends would go, you run around and do whatever. Sometimes they'd have games and do things like that. And I think it's good in a way because it's kind of kept that small town feel. Yeah.
Are there any spots or establishments lost to time in town that you miss?
Well, the VFW, I guess, right off the top of my head, because that's where we used to go ice skating. And you can't really do that anymore. You can't swim there. I used to swim also. And we could walk down from where we lived. Our parents let us just go on our own, and off we would go. I also used to swim at the Trestle, which some of you may or may not know, but that's right in the center of Townsend. And you could jump or dive off the trestle, which I did. But now you can't do any of those things. So sometimes they've kind of limited things. Again, it's probably from a safety reason, but we didn't have so many rules and regulations back then, so you just did what you did, and hopefully you didn't do anything too stupid. I'm still here today to talk about it, so I feel like it was okay to do those things too. Yeah.
Did you ever work in Townsend or just out of town?
Well, I did, because I worked at Elsa Williams. So when I was in college, that's when I first started there, and then I continued there. I didn't go into teaching right away because there was actually a lot of teachers at that time. And I had a job that I liked, and so I just ended up sticking with it. And then, so I never really went into teaching my whole career. But I was still glad I went to college. I think it's good. I think everybody should go to college, or at least a 2-year college, something. I think they need time to kind of get away from, just going to high school and then starting work. I think there's a growth period there it is important for people to go to school.
Could you tell us more about your what you do with yoga?
Sure. So I started yoga sort of on my own. I just had I had a little cassette. And then we went to VHS. We had tapes and everything. And I wanted to do some type of exercise. I used to like to ski, and I was never in shape to go, so I thought, well, what could I do? So I ended up going to a yoga class. I was living in Merrimack, New Hampshire at the time. So I started there, and then I just kind of kept on continuing it. It's just spoke to me. And after several years of practicing, actually the place that I went to, they asked if I'd considered teaching, and I was like, well, no, not really. I just practice. And somebody else, actually here in Townsend, I'd moved to Townsend, she had commented about it, and I said, well, you know what? Maybe that's something I should consider. I always had a full-time job. I worked at I did a few different jobs down in Billerica and Tewksbury. The company sold medical products, like for angioplasty. If you're going to have a heart issue, they did very well by them. I did well by them also. And anyway, it was I was there for some time, and the division that I worked with, they were going to be closing, and so they asked if I might like to move to another division, or would I like to get a severance package and get laid off. And I went, I'm gone. I had been there for like 13, 14 years, whatever. So anyway, that's when I really started to pursue yoga more. I went and I did yoga teacher training a few different places. One of them is here in Massachusetts, and if you ever get the chance, you might want to check it out. It's called Grupalu, and it's in Lenox or Stockbridge, I guess. So I went there, and then I came back, and I opened up a studio just like that. I decided it was just time to dive in. So that's what I did, and that was in, I think my training, I left the end of 1998, 1999. So yeah, I started teaching yoga pretty much full-time in 1999. Yeah. I taught here in Townsend, then I moved to Lunenburg, and now I'm back in Townsend. And I'm still going strong.
So you were in high school and college in the early 1960s and 70s.
Right.
And we always hear about this time period being, a period of change. So what were those years like here in Townsend?
Probably like most everywhere else. I don't think that all of us really realized it was just kind of happening. Like it was, we were questioning everything. We were experimenting, doing different things, like smoking marijuana, which of course you can now anyway, but back then it was illegal. And, everybody was letting their hair grow and, wearing their bell bottoms and not wanting to really be part of the establishment, I guess, in a way, which I think happens with all people when you're young, in your generation. It's just a natural occurrence, but maybe it stood out a little bit more back then, because I noticed the difference between people my age and people that are 10 years older. We're in a whole different place. They never did any of that. They were still pretty much going, straight down the line, but we were sort of, and I don't think we thought much about it because so many people were doing that. Especially if you were in college, because that's the time where you're finding out more about yourself and everybody else too.
Were there any anti-war protests at college?
Yeah, because that was the Vietnam War, Fitchburg State had a little bit, and certainly bigger colleges. My boyfriend was going to UMass in Amherst, so they would have that there too. But yes, those things were definitely happening. Yeah, for sure.
So what were your regards around all those things happening in college?
I was not certainly one of the leaders in that type of thing. I was more of a follower. But I certainly was not for the war. There were no one, none of my closest friends or anything ever had to go to Vietnam. I know of people that have, that were a little bit older, and I was actually married during that time, but luckily my husband did not have a number that got called because it was a number system, and if you went to college you weren't getting called either, so that was another plus. So I still feel like I was a little bit on the outskirts of it because I wasn't knowing anybody or whatever, so I didn't feel like it was affecting my life directly. And I wasn't very political back then either.
When the Townsend citizens open this time capsule in 50 years, what are you hoping they learn and gain from it?
Well, I think one thing they'll probably learn about, it's like if I go back 100 years and I talk to my grandmother or something like that, you realize that times change, but people still are people. You know, we still want the same things, and I think wherever it is there, I'm not going to be here in 50 years, but I hope that, I mean, especially with with what we're going through now, I hope that we still have our democracy. I guess that's, you know, pretty important. And obviously there'll be more technology because, I mean, when I started working, there wasn't even computers around. So it's hard for younger people to realize what the world was like. It was different. Does it make it better or worse? I don't think so. It's kind of like what you decide to make of it. And it can certainly make your life easier too. I mean, I can't imagine not having my cell phone anymore. But back then, you know, we just had a dial. 379, that was my number, my home number. So everything is much quicker and faster. And I think that, you know, we still have to think about kind of tempering things down a little bit and not always being, thinking that going faster is always better.
Did you ever get into the town's activism with campaigning for candidates for the office in town and stuff like that?
In town, I voted, but as far as actually campaigning, I didn't. I did for some presidents a long time ago, but not actually for town officials. I wasn't very oriented toward that at that time. I think that's one of the things that, as time went on, I think I decided to participate a little bit more in. Yeah.
Alrighty, and that's all we
Alright.
have for you.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very lovely.
So we're 3 interviews in, and the one commonality, I don't know, those of you who have been in on them,
Uh-huh.
all 3 of you have talked about being kids